First, we have some wonderful people standing here I will introduce. I stand here today to address the unprecedented, outrageous attacks on the Environmental Protection Agency and on our landmark environmental laws. These laws have enjoyed unprecedented, strong bipartisan support over the decades. I never thought that in the year 2011, we would have to fight for these landmark measures that have been so successful for America. Today, I am releasing an EPW report, and Bettina, could you hand me one of them? Oh, thanks. This is, I have a better one, a bound one. I'm releasing this very important EPW staff report that's going to set the record straight, not only today, but every day. Every day that we have to fight what's going on in the House. I understand Representative Wilson has somebody here today, right? Where are you? Welcome. And Representative Wilson, I hope will join us. I hope that's why your presence is noted here today. The bottom line is, this report proves unequivocally that a strong EPA is essential for health protection and economic growth. I have been joined by my friend and my colleague, a senior member of the EPW committee, Senator Ben Cardin from Maryland. I'm so happy he's here. Also with us today are friends from public health and labor organizations who support EPA and environmental safeguards because of the many health and economic benefits they provide to millions of Americans. These organizations include the United Auto Workers, the Service Employees International Union, the Blue-Green Alliance, American Lung Association, Union of Concerned Scientists, the Sierra Club, American Nurses Association, Southern Environmental Law Center, Environment America, League of Conservation Voters, Natural Resources Defense Council, and the American Thoracic Society. I thank you all for being here. I often say, if you can't breathe, you can't work. And anyone who cares about the economy and jobs knows that. Now, following my remarks, first we're going to hear from Senator Cardin, and then from Sylvia Johnson, PhD with the UAW, and Paul Billings with the American Lung Association, and then I'll take questions. As pointed out in the very first section of our report, EPA and landmark environmental safeguards were created with overwhelming bipartisan consensus in Congress and support from Republican and Democratic presidents. Both sides of the aisle deserve credit for improving our environment. Here are examples of that bipartisanship over the past 4 decades. I'm going to quote from these charts. President Nixon said, "Clean air, clean water, open spaces, these should once again be the birthright of every American." Senator Jennings Randolph, Democrat from West Virginia, said, "When the health of the nation is endangered, so is our welfare, and so is our economic prosperity." President Gerald Ford said at the signing statement of the Safe Drinking Water Act, "Nothing is more essential to the life of every single American than clean air, pure food, and safe drinking water." And EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson said, "For 4 decades, we've confronted environmental challenges, fostered innovations, and cleaned up pollution." And William Ruckelshaus and Christy Todd Whitman, EPA administrators under Presidents Nixon, Reagan, and George W. Bush, said, "It's easy to forget how far we've come in the past 40 years. We should take heart from all this progress and not, as some in Congress have suggested, seek to tear down the agency that the President and Congress created to protect America's health and environment." The long history of bipartisanship is being put in jeopardy as we speak over in the House of Representatives right now. Those Republicans in the House are using incorrect and misleading rhetoric to attack EPA and our environmental laws. I cannot and I will not sit on the sidelines, and neither will Senator Cardin and other of our colleagues, and allow this rhetoric to go unchallenged. 2 weeks ago, the House of Representatives passed the TRAIN Act. It is a train wreck. It would obstruct EPA's process of setting new health standards, and it would delay life-saving protections. This week, the House Republicans' polluters are again attempting to undermine EPA's ability to curb pollution and protect public health. The House is considering the so-called EPA Regulatory Relief Act of 2011, H.R. 2250, and the Cement Sector Regulatory Relief Act of 2011, H.R. 2681. These bills block common-sense public health protections against mercury and other dangerous pollutants. These bills are shown on page 20 of our report. Our report points out the numerous studies that have been conducted, the scientific data that has been collected, and the statistical information that has been analyzed. The facts are clear and undeniable. A strong EPA and effective environmental safeguards are good for the American people and are beneficial to the U.S. economy. In other words, a clean environment and strong economic growth go hand in hand. And that's why we call this report a strong EPA protects our health and promotes economic growth. And that is the truth, and that is the fact. And the rhetoric of the Republicans to state otherwise is not only being questioned by this report, by a very leading Republican, Bruce Bartlett, who recently wrote that this whole move by the Republicans to say that regulations are responsible for slow economic growth are just wrong. So, I now want to review the key findings of our report. On page 5 of the report, we show that since the implementation of the Clean Air Act in the 70s, followed by other landmark health and environmental laws, America's gross domestic product has risen by 207%, and it remains the largest in the world. Let's look at that again. Since implementation of the Clean Air Act in the 70s, followed by our other landmark health and environmental laws, the Republicans are challenging right now and trying to weaken or repeal America's gross domestic product has risen by 207% and remains the largest in the world. On page 5 and 6, we show that protecting public health provides major economic benefits. Look at this. The Clean Air Act is projected to provide nearly $2 trillion in annual benefits by the year 2020. Even in this day and age, when you throw around billions and trillions, $2 trillion a year of health benefits is important. The U.S. environmental technology industry in 2008 generated $300 billion in revenues, $43 billion in exports, and supported 1.7 million jobs. So anyone who tells you we have to repeal our landmark environmental laws to get economic growth just simply is either doing the work of the polluters or doesn't know the facts. On page 9, we talk about cleaner vehicles. By making cleaner vehicles, we can put Americans to work. A 2010 United Auto Workers report found that meeting a 31.5 mile per gallon standard would result in up to 54,000 additional jobs in the U.S. in such industries as manufacturing and auto parts supply companies. On page 8, we talk about by reducing air pollution, we save lives and help working families. By 2020, the Clean Air Act is projected to prevent 230,000 premature deaths, 2.4 million asthma attacks, 200,000 heart attacks, 120,000 emergency room visits, 17 million lost work days, and 5.4 million lost school days. Now, let me tell you this. When you look at this, any one of us could be one of those 230,000 people. Any one of us. If I ask this room, and I won't, how many of you have asthma or know someone who has asthma, I will tell you a third to a half of the room will raise their hands. Any one of us could be the 230,000 premature deaths. In my home state, we've had great success in reducing pollution in the air. In 1976, there were 166 days when health advisories were issued in Southern California to urge people with asthma and with lung sensitivities to stay indoors. In 35 years, look at what's happened because of the Clean Air Act. I defy anyone to show me another law that has been as successful as the Clean Air Act. In 35 years, the number of smog-related health advisories issued in Southern California dropped from 166 days to 0 in 2010. 0 days. Now, the closing of our report sums it up on page 21, and I'll read it. The Environmental Protection Agency and the nation's landmark environmental safeguards were created with overwhelming bipartisan consensus in Congress and support from Republican and Democratic presidents. 40 years of achievements are now threatened by partisan attacks. Over the 40 years since the creation of EPA, we have seen the economic and health benefits of protecting our public health and the environment. According to the Department of Commerce, an estimated 1.7 million jobs and $300 billion in revenues are generated by industries that support environmental protection. Clean air protections are estimated to produce $2 trillion in annual health benefits by 2020. And for every $1 billion invested in infrastructure to reduce water pollution and treat drinking water, up to 26,000 jobs are created. These safeguards reduce premature deaths and illness, promoting a healthier and more productive workforce. Attacks on the nation's successful public health protections are not supported by the facts. Repeated studies have shown that polluting industry claims of cost and job losses are often inaccurate. 40 years of experience demonstrates that the EPA and the laws it enforces protect our health while supporting our economy. That's the closing of our report. And let me add this. As chairman of EPW, with my colleagues, I plan to disseminate the irrefutable facts in this report far and wide, and I will use every tool at my disposal to stand up to the false claims, to the scare tactics, and the dangerous legislation being pushed by Republicans in Congress, some of which is happening as we speak. And now it's my honor to introduce my friend and colleague who's a real fighter for clean air, clean water, Ben Cardin. Let's move this out of the way. Thank you, Ben.
First, let me thank Chairman Boxer for her extraordinary leadership in the production of this report. This is a very important document, and Senator Boxer has the responsibility as the chair of the Environment and Public Works Committee to let our colleagues in the Senate, indeed the nation, know the facts concerning the importance of the work that the Environmental Protection Agency is doing in protecting our air and protecting our water. It's interesting that the EPA is doing this in order to protect Americans' birthrights. As President Nixon said, clean air, clean water, and open space should be all about what Americans are entitled to expect living here in America. What this report demonstrates that in protecting our birthrights, we are also allowing our economy to grow. And the opponents that are offering these bills and these riders to appropriation bills and every opportunity they have to try to reverse and repeal the efforts of the Environmental Protection Agency to protect our clean air and clean water, to basically enforce the laws that have been on the books now for 40 years that have changed rivers that caught fire to rivers that are healthy for us to live next to. What they're doing is just the opposite of what they're saying. And this is what this report shows. This is why this report is so significant, Chairman Boxer, because there are those who are claiming they're doing this in the name of creating jobs. What they're doing is they're hurting our economy. They're hurting our economy. And today, when we're trying to do everything we can to be more competitive, to have more jobs, we need to do everything we can to help our economy. And working towards a clean environment will make our economy better. We know that the numbers of people who have been directly affected, the number of premature deaths, the number of people suffering from asthma. We know those numbers. Chairman Boxer, let me just give you one more person you can add to your list, and that's the ranking Republican member. We had a hearing Tuesday before the Subcommittee on Water and Wildlife, and we talked about the excess of nutrients that are entering our waterways. That comes from human activity, from the failure to deal with runoffs of phosphorus and dealing with too much nitrogen that enters into the bay. What it does into the waters, what it does, it creates algae blooms, which are basically dead zones that affect, yes, the aquatic life, but it also affects our life. And our colleague happened to run into contact with one of those algae blooms and became very, very sick. So this is a public health issue, a clean environment. And it's critically important that we carry out the traditional support so that Americans have a right to expect that the air that they breathe, the water that they drink, the streams that they go swimming in are safe. And that's our primary responsibility. And the actions of those who are trying to restrict what the Environmental Protection Agency can do runs exactly opposite that. The second example I want to give you is my own state of Maryland. My own state of Maryland has taken action to improve our clean air. I congratulate Governor O'Malley and our legislature in 2007 reduced mercury, SOx, and NOx emissions by implementing the toughest PowerPoint emission laws on the East Coast of the United States. We did that. And we were able to reduce dramatically SOx emissions, NOx emissions, and mercury emissions. I can give you numbers anywhere between 75% to 90% over a 10-year period. That's quite an impressive showing. Working with our utilities, there was a $1 billion investment in the Brandon Shores plant. That created 2,000 skilled construction worker jobs, providing 26 months of work. But it doesn't end there. It also gives us cleaner air and many more jobs that have been created in our state. Moving aggressively for clean air will create jobs, not lose jobs. Will keep our people healthy. Will allow us to be more competitive. And by the way, it will all make us all feel a lot better. In my own state of Maryland, the Chesapeake Bay is an iconic part of our history. We want to make sure it's part of our future. And this is about a quality of life. It is about our birthright, but it's also about our economy. And this report makes it very, very clear that if we want America to grow, then we need to pay attention to the enforcement of our environmental laws.
Thank you so much, Senator. Now, this child has done what most people do when we talk too long. The child has fallen asleep. And now we can invite the child back. But anyhow, I am thrilled to introduce Sylvia Johnson, UAW. Please.
Let me start by thanking you, Senator Boxer, for giving the UAW the chance to share its views on job creation and the domestic production of advanced technology and cleaner vehicles. The UAW believes that strong but achievable fuel-efficient and greenhouse gas emission standards are good for the automobile industry in the United States. The combination of strong standards and incentives for the domestic production of advanced technology vehicles and their key components, excuse me, is promoting a green-based revival of the domestic automobile industry. Engineering and producing the technology needed to meet these standards will create jobs from the lab to the factory floor. This is already occurring across the nation, from Michigan to North Carolina to California and beyond. In fact, the UAW, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and the National Wildlife Federation recently produced a report that identified over 300 facilities across the United States where clean vehicle technologies are being developed or produced. Collectively, these facilities employ over 150,000 people. In a time when we need all the jobs we can get, it's clear that designing and producing cleaner vehicles leads to job creation. These vehicles also help the United States solve important national problems by improving public health, saving consumers money at the pump, reducing our dependence on imported oil, and reducing climate change pollution. These overwhelmingly positive effects are why the UAW strongly supported the framework agreement between the Obama administration, the automobile industry, and California to extend clean car standards to 2025. We understand that it is possible to create jobs, clean up the environment, improve public health, and reduce fuel costs for American families. And we want to thank the automobile companies, President Obama, you, Senator Boxer, and this committee for their tremendous leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Paul Billings, American Lung Association. We're so happy you're here with us.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Boxer, Senator Cardin, friends in labor, health, environmental community. The nation needs public health protection from environmental threats, water that is safe to drink, and air that is clean and healthy. These are our core values. Yet the Clean Air Act faces unprecedented attacks by polluters and some in Congress. Today, the House of Representatives will once again pass a bill that rolls back protections from toxic mercury and other toxic air pollutants. The American Lung Association, our health partners, our medical partners, doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, parents and families are standing strong to say no. No to more air pollution, and yes to a healthier future for America. We are here today to call on Congress to reject H.R. 2681, the Cement Toxic Air Pollution Promotion Act, say no to rolling back protections from toxics from industrial boilers, and we're calling on the Senate to reject amendments that were filed last night that roll back toxic air protection, stop EPA from following the Clean Air Act, and review the science of particle pollution. Particle pollution is not benign dust, as some would have you think, but a dangerous pollutant that causes asthma attacks, heart attacks, strokes, and even premature death. This is a special room, a room where the Senate has worked in a bipartisan way to protect the air we breathe, to protect the promise that Congress made to the American people through the Clean Air Act, that everyone, especially the most vulnerable, has the right to breathe clean air. These Clean Air Act protections have unleashed new technologies and vast improvements in the air we breathe, the health of our people, and the quality of life in communities across the nation. Clean air, innovation, job growth, and health protection all go hand in hand. I'm proud to stand here today to celebrate these accomplishments and to look ahead to the continued health and prosperity for all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the Lung Association. You have such a wonderful reputation for telling the truth to the people, and that's why the people support a strong EPA by overwhelming numbers, 70–80% strong. And Senator Cardin, would you come up here with me, and we will answer any questions that anyone might have from the press. Yes, sir.
Air level inside EPA. Regarding the boiler rules in
Yeah.
the boiler bill in the Senate, there was some talk about maybe talking to Senator Wyden and some other folks about their possible support for something like that. I just want to see what's the progress of that.
Sure.
And is there are there prospects for blocking that bill from moving forward?
I've been talking to Senator Wyden. He has a specific issue with cogeneration. Where's Bettina? Is she here? With cogeneration, biomass. We think we can solve that problem without doing damage to the rules. So we're working closely and feel good about that progress at this point. And anybody else have questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, Lucas Zellers, CNS News. I was wondering if you could speak to the current financial impact on manufacturing companies of complying with EPA regulations, specifically the cement industry and the auto industry.
Right. I think what we try to say in this, prove in this report is that at the end of the day, these rules and regulations are very good for the economy. And let me quote you from a General Motors quote on page 9 of the report, which we hope you see. You don't have any, but you might get a copy of the report. General Motors Company recognizes the benefit of the country of continuing the historic national program to address fuel economy and greenhouse gases that the EPA and the National Highway Safety Administration, NHTSA, has begun. And there's more quotes like that from business. Here's one by a number of businesses. Our company's experience complying with air quality regulations demonstrates that regulations can yield important economic benefits, including job creation, while maintaining reliability. And I'll tell you who signed on to that statement: PG&E, Calpine, Next Extra Energy, Public Service Enterprise Group, National Grid USA, Exelon Corp, Constellation Energy Group, Austin Energy, and that was in a Wall Street letter to the editor, yeah. So, you know, we just don't believe, and I also like to quote this article, find it, by Bruce Bartlett, a Republican stalwart who worked for Reagan, President Reagan and President George H.W. Bush, and he served on the staffs of Representatives Jack Kemp and Ron Paul. And he said, there is no hard evidence to the claim that these regulations cost jobs. You ought to read this. So I just don't buy into that, and I think that's just some of the polluters who don't want to step up to the plate. So they spread these, you know, false charges. And we've proven it over the years. The Clean Air Act amendments, you should see what was predicted, what it would cost, problems, that it would stop growth and all that. Never happened. So we just don't buy into it.
Can I just add one thing? I mean, this is the same argument we hear over and over again when we pass labor laws to protect labor from being abused, where we protect safety laws where people would not be injured, that as Americans we led in making sure that there was adequate ground rules for how America would conduct its commercial business. Quite frankly, I think our standards are universal. I think they're global, and we're seeing that incorporated more and more around other countries around the world, and we should be fighting for a level playing field for American producers, and today we're fighting for that on currency issues, and we had a good vote on the floor of the United States Senate. So this is the same arguments we've heard. It's a false dilemma. America not only can be competitive and do it in a way that's sensitive to our environment, we can be more competitive by being sensitive to our environment.
The whole world wants these technologies. That's the fact. Okay, we have time for one more question. Well, we'll do 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Puneet Kolapara with Hearst Newspapers. And I have a question regarding reports that EPA is going to, I guess, reduce the amount by which states under the cross-state air pollution rule are going to have to reduce their emissions. Nothing official has come out on that, but what's your reaction to that report? How would
well, I'm not going to react to something that we don't even know, and my staff says it's a technical adjustment and not really substantive. So that's our comment. 2?
2 really, really quick things.
Say who you are.
Jane Shemnick from Greenwire. Just as a follow-up to the Wyden question, would that mean that you'd have your own bill that would just focus on...
Might not be necessary. It's such a small change. Might not be necessary to have a bill.
So in other words, EPA could just make the adjustments?
We don't know yet, but that's very possible.
Okay, and secondly, are you going to be holding any kind of a hearing on the IG report that came out last week on...
I don't know. I might hold a hearing on that. I might hold a hearing on this report. I don't know. I haven't, you know, right now this committee is focused hard on 2 things, okay? On the public works side, our highway bill. It's taken tremendous focus and effort. I just got off the phone a couple hours ago with at least 50 stakeholders, at least, maybe more, and we're working very hard to get our 2-year bill done with an offset and get that going. So that's taking a lot of time. And the other is fighting this war, this attack on the environment that's here, that I hope maybe Congressman Wilson's presence here with the staff means maybe we're winning him over. But the fact is we're really in a bad situation over there with them going after every landmark law. So those are the 2 major focuses that I have. And on the IG, I mean, I read it word for word. And my comment, which I made, was at the end of the day, they said the EPA followed the science. They never questioned that they did. And it was more of a technical thing. Which did they do, a peer review or what level of peer review they did? So I don't think they questioned the ultimate endangerment finding. As a matter of fact, I believe they underscored that it was the right finding. So whether I have a hearing about whether they should have done this peer review or that peer review, it's a question of what's more important for the American people right now. And I think what's important for the American people, get jobs, 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 through our highway bill and through our environmental laws.
Lucia Graves with the Huffington Post. You said
With
earlier...
who? I'm sorry.
The Huffington Post.
Oh, hi.
Hi. You called this attack on the EPA unprecedented, and I know Rep. Waxman has put together a report showing that the legislation on boilers and cement legislation is one of just 63 pieces of legislation that the House has voted on trying to undermine regulatory authority of the EPA. Do you feel like this is a concerted political attack, and where do you feel like those talking points are coming from?
I absolutely think it's a concerted attack on the health of the American people and on jobs. I honestly do, and I think it's at the behest of the big polluters in this country who don't want to step up to the plate like some of them are willing to do. You have some bad actors, and they, in this political system, dictate to many members of Congress what those members of Congress should do. And it is outrageous. And again, I would refer you to Bruce Bartlett, Misrepresentations, Regulations, and Jobs. A stalwart Republican who worked his whole life for Republicans say they have no answer. They said they just have no answer to jobs. So they're turning to this at the behest of the polluters. But let me just say this. It is a war on the health of the American people and on the jobs they're created by pursuing clean air, clean water, safe drinking water, and all the other landmark laws. So we're here to say, the two of us, on behalf of many others, and these terrific people who are here, some with their little babies who have cooperated beautifully with our event today, that we are not going to stand by. You know, they're attacking America. This is Americana. Nixon, Senator Randolph, Ford, Lisa Jackson, Ruckelshaus, Whitman, and many other. I didn't put up all the Democrats I could have put up. But the bottom line is they're attacking and they're going to war against the health of the American people. And we view it that way. And we are here to say it will not stand. We will use every tool at our disposal to make sure it doesn't see the light of day over here. Thank you very much.